I think sort of where to start is it's good news. Like the transatlantic alliance is not dead. It's not obsolete, as Donald Trump mentioned, and on which he came back later. But it's sort of merely shifting from this alliance that was always based on values to a more pragmatic relationship, one that is based on interests, which means that the United States and Europe are not necessarily natural partners anymore when it comes to global engagement. In a way, America first means sort of that it's now Europe's moment, and this sounds like a contradiction, but it's really not. Now the United States is sort of flip-flopping and causing confusion all over the world with what it wants to do on with its foreign policy agenda. This is really a moment for the US or for the EU to step up and say, look, we are the reliable partner.
But as long as Trump is there, we will have to deal with insecurity. And even if there is no clear policy coming from Washington, this insecurity will have an effect in and of itself. There are moderates within Trump's administration, such as General Mattis, and they do not support Trump's statements on Europe and NATO, and they have had some moderating influence. But especially in the area of foreign policy and defense, the president has great room to follow his own course. And this means that we cannot trust on the moderate forces within the Trump administration to save the day. And this also means that the American security guarantee is no longer rock solid. So we need to adapt to this new situation, and keep calm and carry on no longer suffices. So we can hope for the best, but we should prepare for the worst. And this means that Europe has to grow up as a security and defense actor.
The biggest internal challenge to the transatlantic relation is really the failure for decades of politicians to communicate why it is so important to have international cooperation. And this is really something that could very much undermine the transatlantic relationship. It has, it's partly responsible for Donald Trump coming to power, but almost, or certainly so, also the rise of populist movements in Europe and their influence on mainstream political parties. And then maybe finally, and this is something where YATA comes in as well, like in the long term, I think it's really important that both the EU and the United States, even beyond the capitals, beyond Brussels, beyond Washington, sort of comes up with a way to communicate to the citizens on both sides of the Atlantic why international cooperation is important. And this starts in the schools, like historical awareness, but also teach people about the Marshall Plan and why that is important. But also not only students, but also the media plays a role in this. Work with the media to share success stories about international cooperation, and then also have invest in exchange programs like Erasmus. The big success of European cooperation.
But isn't it? Haven't we been sort of naive in Europe? Because everything was going great, the economies were growing, we were making partnership deals with Russia. And now that we're faced for the first time in a few decades with some instability, we start losing our minds. Or are these sort of assumptions that we have on the perceived danger of an unpredictable America, do you think that those fears are rational, or are they somewhat too much related to our spoiled reference point of an ever close and growing union?
I don't think it's sudden paranoia. Well, it is. I think it's more like a wake-up moment. That's rather how I call it, and it's sort of a really welcome wake-up moment, though, because those populist tensions, they've been simmering for quite a while, and they have been impacting mainstream political parties for quite a while. So now
it's nothing new, actually.
Exactly. Yeah. So now there is a Donald Trump where it's so visible, what actually happens when someone like that is in power. It's sort of, I would say it's sort of intensifying all these things I just mentioned.
Yeah. In international relations, we're always interested in stability or the absence of stability. But also markets, of course, they don't really like uncertainty or instability or uncertainty. So I would like to ask you, Marijn Willens of Fokker, how does the industry perceive this transatlantic, maybe new transatlantic relationship?
Representing Dutch industry, I am working for a aerospace company. The aerospace business is always very much focused on both civil and defense business. So if you look at the Fokker portfolio, half of our revenue, so to say, are defense related. Defense related revenue and business is always sourced from the US. There's very, very little defense business that we do in the Europe zone. And that's because of the fact that the Dutch heritage and the Dutch policy when it comes down to defense is really America focused. So when you buy American products, you get the right to do American business as well when it comes down to defense business. So for Fokker specifically, the transatlantic relationship is a very important one because it is a enabler for us to do business and it's also a stabilizer for our business because if the civil business goes down, defense stays stable. On the other end, stability is at the moment not the, let's say, most given fact in the industry. So stability on between countries and especially on the transatlantic relation is for us a very important thing to keep. Stability for the Dutch industry and the aerospace business specifically is very, very important. And I don't think that this stability is a given for the next few years. So when you talk about the short term, the majority of things that I'm thinking that might happen are very hypothetical, so questions mainly. And the first question I would have is what does it mean when Trump says that America first is his first and foremost, let's say, policy point in everything that he will do? Will that mean for Fokker, for example, that we have our factories in Mexico for US customers, where we have to close these factories, where we have to put these factories on US soil? That will mean huge investments for us as a company that will not have a payback period within the lifetime of the programs we're running over there. So that's a bleeder, and we're not going to be able to do that. And with us, a lot of US corporations probably as well. So that's a problem.
2007 saw a massive attack on Estonia. That attack on Estonia led to the creation of CCDCUE, NATO's Center of Excellence on Cybersecurity. It led to the Tallinn Manual, where we re-evaluated the international law applicable to cyberspace. And I think the biggest challenges are yet to come technology-wise. If we look at this age we're living in, smartphones are just one thing. That's like 10 years now. So, and we as armed forces are still trying to come to grips with smartphones. But if you look at the new technologies actually coming at us, it's nanotechnology, it's artificial intelligence, it's robotics, it's autonomous systems. Those are the big challenges of our times. Our challenge should not be hybrid warfare or anything like that. We should also look at the future and see what's coming for us. And we as youngsters in the organizations have a role to, alert the more senior people, I guess, the senior professionals, that indeed this technology is coming at us.
What do you see for the future as the main threats?
The fact that we now deal with all of those new challenges, that in a way, is also NATO's purpose. Like we have an alliance, we have a sort of group of friends together that can deal with those threats, and I think that is really the message, that together you're stronger than by yourself. I guess that is still the purpose of NATO, and so in my view, we don't have to come up with a new threat or a new purpose, because it was there and it's still there.
Communicating NATO's purpose to the public is that we understand sovereignty not as the ability to take decisions all by ourselves, but the ability to act. And I think that's really important, because if we do everything by ourselves, then we cannot do anything at all. And I think that's a message that sometimes gets lost in communication.
I think the NATO should pursue peace between its members, and by being strong as a group, stronger than the rest of the world, and having the ability to act also, the ability to act not being too big, and really being able to act as if one of the countries is jeopardized, that the others will do something. I think the future of NATO might be something like that, and we maybe should be open to different ideas, but sticking to the principles of being the good in the world and being the strong good.
The question is now, where is the threat? And I would like to, from you, but the answer you just gave, do you really think that the geographical threat for Europe is still enough reason for NATO to remain as it is? Do you really think the NATO nations agree on what that threat is?
There's a need for more flexible formats of cooperation also within the alliance. That's why I talked about PESCO. If you are together with like-minded countries, then it's a lot more easy to act. and you can get things done a lot quicker than if you're at 28.